Hi guys, it's me again. I'm here to give you another asynchronous lesson, I'm afraid. The subject for our lesson today is extremely interesting. As you can see from the presentation title, it's all about how to change someone's mind using the English language. This is a really very old concept. In the time of the ancient Greeks, when the idea of school was just beginning, almost 100% of what you used to learn in school was how to write speeches, how to use grammar, how to speak in a persuasive way that's going to convince people to agree with you. You know, for example, you're the president of a country and you stand in front of the country and you explain something so that hopefully the people who are listening to you will agree with you or begin to like you. This is the whole idea of today's lesson. Although our main subject today is about making persuasive speeches, actually the vocabulary and the language that we're going to learn in this lesson is relevant to any kind of persuasive writing. So, for example, when you have to do essay writing, when you have to persuade someone with an essay, when you write advertising, or even some kinds of journalism, this language we're going to learn today is going to be useful for you as well. Okay, so you guys are the asynchronous class, so you guys are going to have two tasks to do today. Task number one is, as usual, the Teams quiz. It's the homework quiz. But task two is to keep some notes, because we're going to learn 15 new terms for how to describe stylistics in the class. And I would like you to make notes of the names of the stylistic devices and then make an example of your own of these stylistic devices during the lesson. So at the end of the class, you'll send me the quiz and also you'll send me a photo of your vocabulary notes. If you didn't write on paper, if you're just writing in like a Google document or in Microsoft Word or something, that's completely fine, as long as your examples are original and I couldn't just find them by searching on the first page of Google. That's completely fine. I just want you to make notes or make your own examples just to show you understand the concept. All right, so I told you our subject was speeches. So let's start with a few famous speechwriters. Here we go. Here's pictures of 5 famous speechwriters. Do you know any of these guys? Right. Well, the gentleman on the left, he's Winston Churchill. If you know, he's famous for being our prime minister during the time of war. We actually looked at his most famous speech in the first lesson of class. It's the speech that was, "We will fight them on the beaches, we will fight them on the seas and landing grounds, we will fight them wherever they are, we will never surrender." This is his most famous speech. To try and persuade the nation to feel confident in the coming war and not to be afraid and to feel like patriotic, I suppose. The second woman, do you recognize her? She's also one of our prime ministers. Her name is Margaret Thatcher, and she was Prime Minister of Britain in the 70s. What is she most famous for? Well, some of you might have heard about her nickname, which was the Iron Lady. Why was she called the Iron Lady? Oh, because she was really, really tough. Her most famous speech was made to her own party, in fact. Her government had made some quite big changes to the British economy. She said, in the British economy, we shouldn't just be a mineral economy, we shouldn't just have loads of mines. We should try and change our economy to become more industrial or more service sector. And this was really unpopular with a lot of people, right? They say, why did you close my mine? You know, I was working there. What other kind of job am I going to get? There were lots of protests and so on. And her party began to get a little bit worried. Like, we're not going to win the next election. Maybe we should just like change some of our policies back to the old way. Maybe we should like reopen the mines again or something. But Margaret Thatcher, she wasn't having it. Her famous quote is, "U-turn if you want to. This lady is not for turning." So she says, you know, her party, you're all cowards because you're all men, but it takes a woman to stick with her opinion and not change her mind. It's a good speech. You can find it later. All right, this gentleman, probably you know him. Yeah, it's President Lincoln of the United States. His most famous action as president, was to sign something called the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation, this was where he said slavery should be legal. Slavery should be illegal, obviously, in America. So what's his most famous speech? Well, in his speech, he tries to persuade the American nation that having slaves is a bad thing, right? He says, guys, we are the country of freedom. We don't have any kings. We don't have any rulers or masters. Everyone is equal. So then how can we say that some people are born to be slaves and some people are born to be the masters? So in his speech, he persuades the American public to basically turn against slavery, and that was his most famous action. This gentleman up here, probably you don't know him from his face. The sort of period of history you could guess, though? It's the Roman period of history, about 50 AD, 50 Common Era. This painting here is of the funeral of Julius Caesar. We talked before in history about how Julius Caesar died. Can you remember? Caesar died because the government of his time, they are the Senate, the senators, they started to get a little bit worried that Julius Caesar was having way too much power. And they thought, well, he's going to take control of the whole country and ignore all the senators. He's going to become like a dictator. And the rules in Rome were, if you thought someone was a dictator, it was actually legal to kill him. So all the senators come into the Senate one morning. They've all secretly got knives with them. Julius Caesar comes in and the entire Senate, that's about 20 people, one by one, stab him, next one, stab him, next one, stab him. Even Julius Caesar's adopted son, Brutus, stabbed him. Caesar's last words, et tu, Brute, and you, Brutus, my son. Okay, so Caesar is dead. So we have to have like a national public funeral for him because, of course, he was the emperor of Rome. And this is a problem because the tradition of Roman funerals is you burn the body, but also you have a speech about how great the dead guy was, right? So who are they going to choose to have the speech? Well, this man here, he volunteers. His name is Marcus Antonius, Mark Antony in English. Mark Antony, he says, let me make the speech for Caesar. And they're like, yeah, okay, you can make the speech, but you can say anything you like about Caesar, how he was a great leader and we loved him and so on, but you cannot say anything negative about the assassins. The senators, I mean, because now the senators are in control of Rome. There's no emperor anymore. So Mark Antony says, okay, sure, I won't say anything bad about you. I'll just praise Caesar, no problem, bye. He stands up in front of the Roman public and he makes the most sarcastic speech that you will ever have heard in your life. He's like, ladies and gentlemen, these senators yesterday, they acted really according to their honorable nature. And I'm sure that in the future, these senators are going to continue to rule you with exactly the same honor as they have dealt with Caesar yesterday. And his speech, well, obviously the sarcasm works, and actually it persuades the Roman public to have a rebellion against the senators. A lot of senators are killed because everyone's really quite cross with them for killing Caesar. So that's Mark Antony's speech. You can read this in one of Shakespeare's plays, Julius Caesar. You can look it up later. The last guy, you've probably seen his face a few times. He's Martin Luther King. His most famous speech, you all know, I imagine, is I Have a Dream. So he's speaking about 100 years after Lincoln emancipated the slaves, but still the situation for Black Americans is not really very good. So he makes a speech saying, you know what, I have a dream that one day my children are going to go to school, Black children and white children together, and they're going to be judged not from the color of their skin, but just from their character, from their actions. It's a very beautiful speech, and I think it persuaded a lot of people to change their mind as well. Okay, we have the context for our speeches. Now let's look at the speeches themselves. We're going to actually look at the opening lines of some of these extremely famous speeches. I think opening line is probably the most important part of a speech, let's say, because if I start a speech with, "Good morning, everyone. Today's lesson is about stylistics of speech writing, and you're going to just stop listening straight away, right? If you stop listening, I'm never going to get your attention back. You just think I'm boring and you're never going to listen. But if I start with something exciting, "Hi guys, do you want to hear about the ancient Greeks and how they learned how to change people's minds?" Then maybe I'll get your attention and you might listen for a little bit longer in the beginning. So let's look at these excellent first lines here. Haha, I tricked you. It's a task. Yes. Here I have a task for you. You can see there are 12 opening lines here. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and try to fill in the gaps that I've put in these quotes. You can fill in the gaps using the words from down here in this box. It's probably actually going to be easier for you if you just open the PowerPoint, because then it's a bit clearer for you to read. You can go and open the PowerPoint. This is on slide 6. You can do your best to put these words down here into the gaps up here. Okay, so pause the video. Okay, I believe you. You paused the video when you did this task. Maybe you translated some of the words you didn't understand. So let me give you the answers. Here they are. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. This is Mark Antony talking about Julius Caesar. Friends, Romans, countrymen, ladies and gentlemen, lend me your ears. Listen to me. Then we have Winston Churchill. Last Friday evening, I received from the King the mission to form a new government. Whenever we have a new election in Britain, it's the King who tells the Prime Minister, okay, please can you make a new cabinet, make a new government. Next one is Frederick Douglass. Fellow citizens, pardon me and allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? This is a really interesting speech opening because this speech was happening on the 4th of July. What do they celebrate in America on the 4th of July? Independence Day, the day of freedom, the day that we are no longer under the British control and every American person is free to do whatever they like, except some people are not exactly free just at that moment, including Frederick Douglass, who spent the first 40 years of his life, I think, as a slave. But then they invite him on 4th of July to come and make a speech about how great American freedom is. This speech, it's not a very cheerful speech, you will find. He starts the speech by going, guys, why did you ask me to talk here today? Everyone here is talking about how great American freedom is, but I haven't really had a lot of American freedom in my life so far. Good speech. Next one, Lou Gehrig. He had some personal problems, and so he had to quit baseball. He says, although I've been having some bad luck, as you've read in the press, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. Nice. Okay, next one. This is from I Have a Dream. I Have a Dream starts by saying, I'm very happy to join with you today. And then he says, 5 years ago. 1 score is actually 20. So 5 score is 5 times 20. That's 100. 100 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Who's the great American who signed the Emancipation Proclamation? Lincoln. Yes, exactly. Right. So Lincoln is this giant figure of history, and we're standing in his shadow. Okay, next one, JFK. His inaugural address, which means the speech he makes when he's first made into president. He says, a victory of party, a celebration of freedom, an end as well as a beginning, renewal as well as change. There we go. Renewal and change, they're very presidential words, don't you think? Yes. Okay, next one. Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death. He starts with, Mr. President, it is natural for man to indulge in illusions of hope. To indulge, that means to enjoy something even though you know it's bad for you. Like, at the end of the day, I indulge in a chocolate cake. It's not good for me, but I still enjoy it. And an illusion, that's something that seems real but actually isn't. So this man says that human beings naturally indulge in illusions of hope. But in his speech, he says it's no good to base your entire country's constitution, for example, on hope. We should instead base our constitution on facts, and the facts say that liberty, freedom, is better than safety and security. He says, give me liberty or give me death. Good old speech, good. And the next one, it is the birth of a nation. Birth of a nation means the beginning of the nation. So the British nation was born somewhere around 1500 probably. It's hard to say really for Britain, isn't it? Yes. This one, 407 years ago. How many is 407? Do some maths. 87, yes. The country was brought forth on this continent, conceived in liberty. So America was born a free country, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. So these three are the three founding principles of America you can see here. Liberty, creation, as in it's a religious nation, and equal, everyone is the same, born the same. So in his speech, he says, okay, everyone is created equal except for slaves. Come on. So he tries to persuade people that slavery is bad. Right. Okay, next one. This is Ronald Reagan. He's making a speech after the Challenger rocket incident. Basically, the Challenger rocket was a rocket that was going to go to the moon, 4 astronauts on board the rocket. It's on live television, the rocket launch. So whole families are sitting in front of the family television watching the rocket as it launches live. It goes up into the sky, gets to about cloud level, and it explodes. All the astronauts on board died. And this was a real shock, especially for parents whose children were sitting in the room watching while a rocket exploded and killed loads of people. So the American public got a little bit angry about this, I suppose. They were saying, you know, why wasn't it safer? Why didn't we do more tests? You know, why did we do it if it was so risky? Why did these people die, right? So Reagan, he has to make a speech to persuade the whole country to kind of calm down and stop being so angry. So he makes a speech saying, we're used to wonders in this century. It's hard to dazzle us, but there's one thing that is wonderful it still dazzles us in America. It's the United States space program. He says most of us, we're kind of used to the idea of going to space, but we need to remember that we are still pioneers in space. We are still early travelers to this place. And the members of the Challenger crew were pioneers. So the idea is that they knew that it was dangerous. They knew that being a pioneer was a dangerous thing, but still they chose to do it. So you shouldn't be so shocked or upset that these people are dead. Of course you can, but maybe don't go crazy. Yes. Okay, next one. This is William Faulkner's Nobel Peace Prize, not Nobel Peace Prize, Nobel Prize for Literature acceptance speech. In his speech, he says that he doesn't accept the end of man. He says, a lot of people in the audience, you guys really love literature a lot. And a lot of these people believe that even after all humans are dead or all civilization is gone and over, it's okay because our civilization is going to continue with our literature. Our literature will survive us and continue forever. But he says actually he refuses to accept this idea that humans' voice is still going to be talking even after the last ding-dong of doom has clanged and faded from this last worthless rock hanging tideless in the red and dying evening. So when the last bell has rung, ding, 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 it's the end of the world, still our literature is going to continue. No, he doesn't think so. And so he's not so relaxed about the apocalypse as some of his audience members. Good. Okay, so the last one. This is Kurt Vonnegut. He's another American writer. He says, what should young people do with their lives today? Many things, obviously. But the most daring thing is to create stable communities in which the terrible disease of loneliness can be cured. So what should young people do? Should they try and change the whole world? No, they should make their own communities and cure loneliness for themselves first. Nice. Good. So hopefully, after we've read all this, you all understand the meaning now of these speeches. So this final analysis is going to be analyzing what stylistic devices these opening lines use to really get your attention, persuade you to listen, and to sound really impressive and as a good piece of writing. Okay, so let's go a little bit quick. Make sure that you are writing your own examples as we go through. Right, first one. Mark Antony, he says, lend me your ears. What does he mean? Listen to me. But if a stranger came up to the front of your class and said, everyone listen to me, would you listen to them? No, your natural reaction when someone says listen to me is shut up, no I won't. Right, so you want to give an imperative in your speech, a command to your audience to do something, but you want to put it in such a way that they're not going to immediately say like, no. Well, then the answer is to put it inside a piece of metaphor called synecdoche. The stress is here. Synecdoche. An example of synecdoche is lend me your ears. When he says lend me your ears, does he mean like cut off your ear and lend it to me? No. Lend me your ears means like lend me your attention or lend me your brain or something. But you're using ears, the small thing, to represent attention, the big thing. So another example of synecdoche is, could you give me a hand, please? Give me a hand means cut off your hand and give it to me? No. Give me a hand means, can you please give me your time and help and labor, right? That's a big thing to ask of someone, but I'm not saying, please give me your help. I'm just saying, oh, could you give me a hand? So representing it with something much smaller makes it sound less like a strong imperative and maybe a smaller kind of imperative. Synecdoche doesn't have to just represent like people and bodies. It can also represent, for example, there are 20 doors on my street, but 10 of them are nailed closed. Of course, 20 doors actually represents 20 houses, but we're using the door to represent the house, like that. So you can write your own example, and we'll continue as that. Okay, next one. Churchill, on Friday evening last, His Majesty asked me to form a new government. He's telling a short story about himself to begin the speech. Now, this is called an anecdote in English. I know in Russian anecdote means joke, but in English it doesn't. It just means like a short story about something that's happened. So why do you start your speech with an anecdote? Well, it makes the topic of your speech sound more personal, and therefore it kind of gives you a connection to the audience, not as just a person giving information, but as a person telling a story. So you often see this in TED Talks. You don't see very many TED Talks that begin with, there is one big problem in society, and let me tell you about this problem. Why not? Well, because people are going to resist this kind of attitude towards them. Instead, you can start with, yesterday, I was just taking the bus. And while I was getting on the bus, I noticed that I saw 4 different people just playing sound on it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you start the story with like, this is something connected to me. Let me explain how I come to the topic. And you kind of gently guide your audience to also sort of catch the topic with you. Okay, next one. Why am I called upon to speak here today? Does he expect someone in the audience to be like, it's because we like and respect you and we want to hear your opinion? No, he doesn't want the audience to give him a verbal answer at all. It's a rhetorical question. A question that he's just asking for effect. He's not expecting an answer. So what's the point of a rhetorical question? Well, it gets your audience's brains to start working even without them noticing. If I ask you a question like, what's the best speech you've ever heard? Even if I'm not actually getting your answers, I'm getting your brains to like answer the question by themselves. So this is very clever because you get people's attention because they're thinking about the question you've asked them, even if they're not speaking. Okay, next you. Lou Gehrig starts his speech with, "My fans, you have been reading about my bad break, but oh, I've never received anything but kindness and encouragement from you fans." He's talking to the audience directly using you. This is called direct address. If we think, for example, what would have happened if he didn't use direct address, you can see why he actually did. If he started the speech with, "Ladies and gentlemen, the newspapers have been saying some terrible things about me, but I'm here to say that I know that my audience will always support me no matter what, and they will never criticize anything I say." Oh. Well, when he says it like that, you think, oh, this person has a very big ego, and maybe I'm not a fan if his fans will only ever support him. You really exclude a lot of people. But when he talks to everyone, like you guys and you guys and you guys, it includes them. It makes them feel maybe more positively towards him. And he can say some things that he probably couldn't say if he didn't say it in direct address. He also uses a bit of hyperbole here in the speech. For example, "I have never received anything but kindness. I am the luckiest man on the earth." Is he really the luckiest man who's never received anything but kindness? Well, no, probably. But this kind of exaggeration is part of speech writing because you really have to keep the attention of your audience. And if you're just saying kind of small and boring things, you're really not going to keep the attention of your audience for very long. All right, so let's review these first words that we have looked at. Here you can see our vocabulary words, and here are some examples. I'd like you to pause the video, please, and try and match the words here together with the examples on the right. We'll do 1 minute pause. All right, "I am dying of happiness." It's hyperbole. "You are the kindest audience I've ever had the pleasure to address. Thank you, thank you." It's direct address. "I can't give you any money. I've got mouths to feed at home." Synecdoche. What are the mouths representing? Probably like children or something. If I said, "Sorry, I can't give you any money, I have to feed my children," you would think, oh my God, what's wrong? But if I said, "No, I've got mouths to feed at home," it's the same idea, but it sounds less extreme or less strong. So that's why you use synecdoche in this case. "I was walking home from work yesterday, blah, 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 blah." Yeah, that's an anecdote about something that happened to me recently. "Why do we study stylistics?" It's a rhetorical question. And "get out of here." That's an imperative. A command is called an imperative. Cool. Okay, next set. In "I Have a Dream," he starts his speech with, "I'm so happy to join with you in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation." Wow, you audience, you know, you are the best demonstration ever. You're the greatest one. You're going to go down in history forever. The audience are listening to this and thinking, oh, thanks. Yeah, you're right. I am great. Yeah, I like this guy. He knows what's up. If you start your speech with a compliment, they're going to feel positively towards you. And when they feel positive about you, then the chances of them actually listening to you or paying attention to you actually go up. This is true in all parts of life, not only in speeches, but I recommend it. Complimenting people in a speech will definitely improve their mood and improve their attention. What about the symbolic shadow of Lincoln we're standing in? Let's imagine this sentence here, but without the metaphor, without the big symbolic shadow of Lincoln. 50 years ago, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and we are here today to remember him. Is that very interesting or memorable? No. You're not going to go away and think like, oh yes, this is the 100th anniversary of Lincoln, we should remember. No, you're just going to forget it. But when he says, we are standing in the symbolic shadow of Lincoln, you're going to remember that picture. You small crowd and the giant figure of the heroic Lincoln and all of us standing in his shadow and looking up to him. You'll never forget it. So metaphors and symbols like this can create memorable images for your audience. What about this one? Not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom. We see here, not a noun of noun, but a noun of noun. You see, this person is repeating the grammatical structure on both sides of the conjunction. A victory of party, a celebration of freedom. And when you have the same grammatical construction like this, it's called parallelism. Parallelism like this, what it does is it just makes your speech sound more rhythmic, like a poem, and also it just sounds more pleasant and understandable to listen to. The most famous example of parallelism you may have heard is by Caesar. Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. He could have said something like, I came to Eastern Europe and I saw that the people weren't very strong soldiers, so I conquered the country. It's not very strong, is it? I came, I saw, I conquered. You can fill in the rest of the information by yourself, or later on in the speech you can explain where you came and where you saw and where you conquered, but just this phrase by itself sounds incredibly strong. So parallelism, repeating the same grammatical construction. Okay, next one. It's natural to indulge in illusions of hope. Me too, I enjoy indulging in illusions of hope, but guys, we have to stop doing this. He starts his speech by admitting his previous ignorance or his previous vulnerability about himself. This is a very good kind of speech when you're trying to persuade people that they are wrong and you are right. Because if I start my speech with, ladies and gentlemen, all of you are stupid, but not me, I'm not stupid, I know this stuff, so you should listen to me and you should change your mind. They're all going to go like, no, we're not listening to you, we're not stupid, so go away. But if you start your speech with, ladies and gentlemen, just 3 short months ago, I was really stupid. Like you, I think I was doing this thing that was really stupid, and it was only when I realized this small thing that I changed my mind, and now I'm not stupid anymore. So please listen to me. I'll explain the journey that I went on to change my mind, and I hope that I will change your mind as well. Come on this shared journey from ignorance into intelligence, from vulnerability into strength. Follow me in this speech. You can do that in your speech. The last one, this is Thatcher. The birth of a nation, our nation, the British nation. Maybe the first time you see this, you'll think, well, this is parallelism, right? But it's not quite parallelism, because parallelism is repeating the grammatical structure, and this, it's not a repeated grammatical structure. See? The birth of a nation, it's noun, preposition, nation. Personal pronoun, nation. The adjective, nation. So it's not repeating the grammatical construction, it's just repeating words. When you're repeating words like this, it's called anaphora. So what's the point of anaphora? Well, imagine if she started her speech with, I'm here to talk to you about our British nation. You are going to go to sleep. But I tell you what, she's going to say exactly the same information, but using anaphora, she's going to say a nation, our nation, the British nation. Somehow it makes this list of adjectives really, really strong. And so when you do that, it gets the attention of your audience and they're more likely to listen to you. Okay, so let's review that vocabulary then. This time, 5 new vocabulary words. You're going to match them. Pause the video if you didn't pause already. Right, the news was a fire. That's a metaphor. Her son's good looks, her son's job, her son's enormous country house. That's anaphora. Her son, her son, her son. Like you, I used to think pineapples grew on trees. That's admitting your previous ignorance, and let me show you how I changed my mind. How generous you are to hear me speak. That's a compliment. You're generous. And the last one, I wrote the essays, I finished the homework, I passed the exams, but still I failed the class. That's parallelism. Great. Okay, so not very many left. I think there's 4 more to go. Okay, this one. Lincoln starts his Gettysburg Address with 87 years ago. Can you remember how many is 7? 87 years ago. So he starts his speech with 87 years ago. Why does he do that? Well, he could have just started with many years ago, our nation was founded. But people are not going to be very impressed with you if you start your speech with many years ago. Because that's not new information for them. They're not listening to you because you are an authority or because you know anything. It's just a fact that everyone knows. But when he says 7 years ago, it makes the audience think, this person knows what they are talking about. Because he had to do some maths maybe, or he had to just look it up in a book. But if you start your speech with a number, a statistic, a figure, or a date, the audience is going to think that you know what you're talking about. Don't go overboard. Don't start listing statistics, because tell you what, people are going to just not be able to understand you if you list too many. But 1 or 2 statistics is going to make people think that you're really intelligent and you know what you're talking about. Next one. We've grown used to wonders. We are still pioneers. Why is he using the first person plural here? Well, imagine if he didn't use first person plural. Imagine if he started the speech with, you Americans are too used to wonders, and you need to remember that these are still pioneers and you should stop being so upset. Everyone is going to be like in opposition to him and kind of angry with him for saying this thing, right? When he says, like, we are Americans, we are all shocked by this, we're all sad about it, but we need to remember that they were pioneers, it means like me too, right? So I'm on the same team as you, and together we can get through this, and like, don't be angry with me, please, because we are in a team. Nice. Okay, next one. This one is the ding-dong of doom. The ding-dong of doom is something called a neologism. We've been doing a lot of Greek today, but I think you can actually understand this from the Greek. The word neo is new, and logos is words or things that are said. So a neologism is a new word. He has made up the word ding-dong of doom to represent the bells ringing that the apocalypse has come, the apocalypse is here. So why did he invent ding-dong of doom? Well, number one, it's very funny, right? It's alliteration, da, 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 and alliteration is naturally funny. People will go, ho, 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 ding-dong of doom. But also, he's invented this word, the ding-dong of doom, to represent quite a complicated idea. With the ding-dong of doom, he means the end of civilization, or the end of the world, or the end of mankind, as he is explaining it in his speech. Now, once he came up with the idea and he gave it its own name, the newspapers and the TV stations and everyone was using his phrase. In the newspapers, is this the ding-dong of doom for our nation? Or like, we are waiting to hear the ding-dong of doom. It's actually very clever, because you get your idea out to the public and you can even get them to explain it in a really simple way using the word that you've made up. This is also especially good when you are an advertiser. For example, when I tell you you should search for this information on the internet, do I tell you search this information on the internet? No. Because a neologism was invented 20 years ago, just Google it. Google is the name of a company, but for me, in my head, to Google something is just a synonym for searching things on the internet. They've created a simpler word that lets you explain things more simply, but tell you what, a brand name is in my mental dictionary meaning something that people actually do. So somehow the neologism of the advert has got into my brain, it's got into my vocabulary, And now, you know, I'm carrying this brand with me everywhere I go. Very interesting. Right, last one. What should young people do with their lives today? Well, many things, obviously. Here, he's asking a question, and then he's immediately giving you an answer for it. This is called hypophora or hypophora. What's the point of hypophora? Well, if you start your speech by saying, is this a very big problem? Yes, absolutely. In the first part, is this a big problem? The audience are going, is it a big problem? And then you say, yes, and you go, oh, okay. So I don't need to think for myself then. I should just listen to you because you know the answer to this difficult question. Okay. So this is a very clever way to stop the audience from thinking for themselves. So should we be worried about this? Yes, absolutely. What should we do about it? We should ban phones across the country. Why is this a problem? Because it annoys my dog. Okay, right. So you ask and answer the question. It's a good way of like structuring your speech, of course, but also it stops people from thinking for themselves. So last vocabulary check. Here we go. Here's the word in the example. It's one of the most annoying things in the world, but what can you do about it? Nothing. It's hypophora. Did you know that 1/3 of American adults sleeps with a teddy bear? Statistic, and it's true. My friends are a combination of creative and lazy. Cralazy. Neologism. And together, we can change the world. It's first person plural. All right. So, that was quite a lot of vocabulary. I think you'll agree. So, for homework, please, because you guys are the asynchronous task, please just do the Teams quiz for me and send me your vocab list. The other groups have got a project, but don't worry, I'll send you the project next time we're face-to-face again. Your optional homework is you can study the Quizlet. I've sent you a Quizlet as usual. It's got all the vocabulary in it, and it should help you with memorization. All right, so I wish you a lovely day, and I'll see you again another time. Thank you.